Sir.
Thanks, man.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Coinbase and Binance together again for the very first time. We actually, were you at Binance when I was at Coinbase? Were you at Binance in 2018?
I joined Binance in 2021.
2021.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So we didn't overlap, but basically, I know CZ pretty well,
Yes.
and he once told me that. He had thought Coinbase was going to be out of the game because they only had 4 assets for a long time. We had a bunch of assets. We've always respected you, being on their side of things. You guys executed phenomenally well. You've built up the global south. What is currently on the mind of Binance? What's the priorities right now?
Well, I think first and foremost, we are always about our users, right? So we always focus on what our users need, making sure that we keep their trust and confidence. And we're very grateful. I think many people here are users of Binance. So very, very grateful for all your support and confidence on that front. We are almost hitting 300 million users globally. It's a milestone. We are aiming for 1 billion. So I think more to come, more exciting stuff. So we have rolled out many new products, as people know, including our enhanced Web3 wallet, Binance Alpha, which are extremely popular. But also we're working with institutions, which we see as another big wave coming through. So we announced a partnership with Franklin Templeton on that front, and more to come on that. And we're also working with all the other ecosystem partners on the different stablecoin issuers, etc. Yeah.
And so are you, one of the things obviously we're talking today about, like getting into the physical world, right? Binance has held a bunch of developer meetups, you've held conferences and so on, you've spoken at some of these events. Are you interested in doing more in the physical world? For example, Coinbase has had Basecamp recently, and they've been doing that. Solana recently just spoke about their Solana economic zones. Is this something that's on your radar? What are you thinking about with that?
Well, I think what we represent as a company is we want to be supportive of all innovation, right? So we work with different parts, different stakeholders globally, whether they're government, whether they're institutions, whether they're community, to host many of these different events, right? Hackathons. So if you look at the Binance ecosystem, which is pretty big, right? So you have BNB holding their events, we holding our own events, but just collaborating and see what else is out there. And at any point in time, we receive a lot of proposals from multiple parties, and then just trying to see what to prioritize and what makes sense and how can we support of all those new things coming through. And we want to be supportive of all the new key innovation coming through because it's so exciting, there's so many things developing. So we want to be there to play a part in supporting all this innovation.
And so, in terms of, one of the things that Binance has done is you actually have a lot of traction in the developing world, the global south, right? Like a lot of users in Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, and so on, markets that people often, prior to maybe the last 10 years, didn't even think of as markets. How do you think about that, like, in terms of negotiating with small states, getting Binance, presence in these kinds of areas? You must operate in a bunch of different jurisdictions. How do you think about that?
So by now, we are the most regulated exchange globally. We have about 22 different jurisdictions. But, when CZ and the founders set up Binance, it's very clear. The mission is to support the freedom of money, right? Because I think many of us come from developed countries.
Right.
We don't face the same challenges as our fellow human beings that live in developing or emerging markets, right? And it's challenging. I visit many parts of the world where financial inclusion is less than 20%. I mean, I've been involved in financial services for more than 30 years now. Since day one, I started as a central banker. Since day one in the 90s, central bankers, financial institutions have been saying that, look, financial inclusion is something that we need to spend a lot of time, energy, and effort, right, to bring in much more people within the financial services system. But till now, 1.4 billion people are unbanked, have no access to banking system, have no access to payment system. So when I visit many parts of the world where financial inclusion is, let's say, less than 20%.
Yeah, like Bolivia, for example, is using Tether. It's
Absolutely,
almost right.
Absolutely. So the only means for them to solve all these problems has been through blockchain and crypto, right? It's the only mode of payment domestically. It's a superior technology and superior mode of payment when you do cross-border remittance. If you do it via traditional financial system, it takes 2 days, huge fees involved. If you do it via crypto, it's instantaneous, right? Fraction of what you pay. So your loved ones, your suppliers, your vendors get the money instantaneously, right? Compared to the traditional bank. So, and many people argue that crypto blockchain is not a good store of wealth. But if you look at many of these countries, right, that have gone through hyperinflationary situation in the last few years, where their fiat currency has depreciated sharply, I have families coming up and thanking me to say thank you for supporting us, because by storing our wealth in things like Bitcoin, in cryptocurrency, in stable coins, they are so much better compared to their peers, right, compared to their relatives and other friends they have. So they are deeply grateful. So you see crypto at work, and it only exists and become very powerful because it solves fundamental problems that for the longest time traditional finance has not been able to solve.
And so, in your experience, because you operate in a lot of jurisdictions, what are the 3 or 5 most pro-crypto countries in the world, given that you've got a...
Well, you see different pockets, right? So you, at any point in time, you have different countries coming out to say we want to be a crypto hub of the world. So if you look at the sea change that's happened in the US, right?
Yes, right.
Went from anti-crypto
So all the
under
way,
President
right.
Biden's administration to now we want to be the crypto capital of the world, right? Under President Trump. And you see how that change has brought about so much more new capital formation, investments, talent flowing back into the US, and new activities, right? So you look at the number of digital asset treasuries, DEX now, right? Close to 200 listed companies, all because of that movement, because US is the largest economy in the world, largest capital markets. So whatever the US do, the rest of the governments around the world will be forced to pay attention to that, because if the US say that I'm going to be the AI and crypto capital of the world, you better take notice, because they're going to spend a lot of time and energy on that. And if you don't, you're not going to bring in foreign direct investments into the country, you're not going to attract the best talent pool into the country, and capital formation is going to slow down.
So on that topic, so you mentioned that the US is the largest capital markets in the world. Have you seen kind of some of Solana's thinking on internet capital markets, where there's some graphs that indicate that, for example, crypto is the number 4 or number 3 largest market in the world, and NYSE and NASDAQ and the Shanghai Exchange are 1, 2, and 3, or maybe crypto's now number 3 and it's flipped one of them. So do you think that internet capital markets, I mean, I think it's very likely they're going to get to number 1, and then the internet will be the largest capital market in the world. Do you foresee that happening? Do you think about that?
Well, I think it may happen, right? So, I mean, future state is very, very difficult to predict. I hope it does. And I do think that the trajectory is very, very strong.
The trajectory is
right?
in that direction.
The trajectory is tremendous, it's strong. And you have different people. But if you think about it, it is superior. I mean, if you look at traditional finance, if you trade a stock in many parts of the world, it's still based on T+2 settlement.
Yeah.
Right? So you buy it today, clearing and settlement takes place much later. You have to go through broker dealers on that front, pay huge fees, right? So this represents a much more superior system with atomic settlement, right? You buy something, it's cleared immediately, and you eliminated the entire clearing and settlement risk. So if you think about the future state, with AI and crypto and blockchain, if I ask you to build a future state, as you mentioned, of future financial services, you'll not be based on what you see currently, because it's entirely arcade. Most of the middle and back office functions of banks will disappear.
Right.
Because what they do is reconciliation.
Yes.
Right? Which you don't have to do if you use blockchain technology, right? And settlement, and you don't have to do that if you do blockchain, and many things will be replaced by all these things, right? So I would say that the future world will be very different, and is going to transform very quickly.
I mean, the reason I ask is, CZ wrote something a long time ago where he said the initial goal of Binance was to do crypto trading, because he thought that it was pure internet, right? It's packets for packets. I'm somewhat paraphrasing him, but that was the kind of initial goal. And so I think, in a sense, that is, I mean, Uniswap is also, like that, like basically just packets for packets, just on the internet. And in a sense, the market that you've built with all of these people, especially from, the place that's neither the US nor China, it is this giant swath of billions of people. And they're all participants in these crypto markets, and they're trading against each other. I mean, have you ever done any graphs that show, for example, when there's a trade and there's a buy or a sell, there's probably people from several other countries on the other side of that trade. And then just that alone quantifies the gain that comes from, like let's say a Japanese person places a market order, and then that's sold to a Brazilian person and someone in Austria and someone in India or whatever, right? So that right there is much bigger than just the Japanese stock market.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. So if you look at it, the beauty of blockchain and the beauty of our industry is that you can accumulate global liquidity, right? So anybody can access it from anywhere in the world on a 24/7 basis. Unlike traditional marketplace where liquidity is normally centralized in one exchange or a few of the trading venue or a particular country, right? So for us, we're just tapping global liquidity, right? So we're operating by now in more than 180 countries in the world. Any point in time, anybody trade, right? You are interacting with the global community in a very borderless sense, right? So that's the beauty and benefit of it. So you have massive liquidity, and we are, Binance is the leader in that space, and by trading through us, you get access to the best execution in traditional terms, right? Best bid-ask spread, lowest slippage. So we have a lot of users globally, not only looking at crypto now, right? So given the size of our liquidity, what else can we do to help our users into any other asset class? And how do we transform those asset class to become much better with newer technology? Right? It's something that we spend a lot of time and energy thinking through.
So I want to go back to the question about the top crypto jurisdictions, because you're very well positioned to So some people like the UAE is very pro crypto.
Absolutely.
I think there's other countries like, interestingly. So this is something maybe you can parse, because like Hong Kong seems to have totally U-turned and now they're trying to reboot it as a very pro crypto place.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. So you have at different juncture, you have different countries coming out to say, hey, I'm going to be very pro-crypto. But very much depends on whether execution takes place to really support that. So you can have bold ambition,
right,
but you have to back that up by execution.
Right.
So if you remember, Japan was the first one.
Yes,
In Asia Pacific, right?
Yes.
Japan was the first one to say, hey, I want to be the crypto hub. But then execution subsequently.
So who's executed well?
I would say at this point in time, some of the Middle Eastern countries are executing pretty well. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Bahrain is executing.
And that's where you're based, or that's yeah.
Singapore has taken off in a very big way, and then I think subsequently, people are now trying to understand the new regulations coming through. So let's see where that heads towards. Hong Kong has bold political ambition. But then now you have to see whether the regulatory execution part can match up to the bold ambition.
Would you say, as a general rule, smaller countries are more crypto friendly?
Well, because they are more nimble and more agile, right? So I think agility in our space is extremely important. In large countries, you normally have a number of regulatory agencies involved. You have, you need bills to be passed in a very tedious fashion. Whereas small countries are just much more nimble to bring about all those changes very quickly, and you can have very supportive regulatory agencies.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because it's somewhat similar to like reverse mergers or digital asset treasury companies. They have a publicly listed thing that's gone through all the paperwork to have a symbol, and then you have a cloud entity, a currency that goes and merges with them, and then it can list its currency as a digital asset treasury company. And so in the same way, all of these small states, you could basically go because they have sovereignty, they've got a flag. It's very hard to, quote, get listed in the UN, right? It's even fewer than the S&P 500, it's the UN 193, okay, so to speak, right? So there's even fewer listed sovereigns than there are stocks, but there are on the order of 200 of them,
Yes.
right? So it's actually quite a lot. And then if you add the special economic zones and you add the cities, you start to get a few thousand, right? And so you can do deals where you just go and talk to them, and basically, if you have the capital, you could actually go and get a law changed and just say, okay, we'll open office and put in $1 billion if you change X, Y, and Z law.
Yes.
And just sign an MOU.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, are you interested in doing that kind of stuff?
We are seeing a lot of that. It's not only on the regulatory framework front, but now you probably see a lot of countries starting to set up their own strategic asset reserves, right? So, for example, the Kingdom of Bhutan.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Kazakhstan recently using us to set up. So we have a lot of country states now coming to us to say, hey, US, all the institutions are coming in a big way. we need to start allocating assets into this important asset class. So we are helping them on that. And also, some of the smaller country states, they are much more willing to experiment.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like startup countries.
Yeah, precisely. So when you do a lot of those experiments, they know that if the experiment goes right, it has huge impact in terms of economic windfall for the country. If it goes wrong, they can contain it, right? So they are a lot more into experimentation, which is very important.
And this is how we can help small countries rise.
Yes, that's right.
Great. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Great.
so much for having
Okay.
me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.